Good evening, Facebook audience. Welcome, Hope of the Day, and hopefully Pathlight Mood Anxiety Center Facebook watchers as well. My name is Carl Evans. I'm the Senior Director of Operations at Hope of the Day, and this is the housewarming party for Pathlight. It's going to be a special event that we're doing here on the Facebook page and co-streaming to the Pathlight Mood and Anxiety Center's new social media platform. For those of our Hope of the Day audience who saw the advertisement for the housewarming party, this is actually a first of a kind for us. And it's a special event that we're super excited to put on. Why we called it a housewarming party is that in existing group, a partner in prevention that we like to think of, formerly known as Insight Behavioral Health, has redesigned, rebranded, and enhanced their strategies and their organization under the name Pathlight Mood and Anxiety Center. And this week marks the launch of all their social media platforms and online content for you to be able to connect and get in touch with them with their phenomenal resources and services. And Hope for the Day is outreach and education organization. We're always happy and super excited to partner with direct service organizations and agencies that are part of the bigger spectrum of suicide prevention and mental health, and normalizing the conversations and trying to make a positive impact to mitigate and resist escalation to mental health crisis and the harm and risk of loss of life. So tonight we have a great group of individuals who are going to be sharing with you a little bit about Pathlight Mood and Anxiety Center. We have two guests on, one who's going to be sharing lived experience, one who's going to be talking from the service side of the organization. And really what we want you to think about tonight is that this is an opportunity to learn about an organization that's not new in its footprint in our communities, but is basically created a new approach in terms of the branding. And you're going to learn a lot more about that from our excellent guests tonight. And the way I thought we would start out for everyone here who's watching now or will be engaging with this in the upcoming days and weeks and months beyond, is that we have an excellent video that gives a quick overview of Pathlight Mood and Anxiety Center. And we thought for all of you watching right now and listening, this would be a good way to get things started. So before I bring on our two guests, let's take a quick look at this excellent video that provides an overview.
Feeling lost is something that happens on the journey to learning who we are. For more than 15 years, Insight Behavioral Health Centers has successfully helped thousands of patients struggling with mood and anxiety disorders discover the life they want and stay the course living it. To better reflect who we are and our unique treatment approach, we've changed our name to Pathlight Mood and Anxiety Center. At Pathlight, we compassionately light the way forward for our patients, putting them in the driver's seat of their true self. We're here to illuminate their unique path forward, out of the dark, into life. Our award-winning industry leaders and some of the foremost experts in behavioral health offer specialized, innovative treatment at all levels of care.
Our approach is rooted in evidence-based treatment that helps our patients and their families learn to manage their symptoms as well as understand the underlying concerns impacting their behavior and emotions. Our goal is to equip patients with the insight and skills they need to rebuild resilience and transform their lives.
Because once you gain the knowledge, it can never be taken away from you. Let's unlock its power together. Schedule a free care consultation and same-day assessment with one of our expert, caring, master's-level clinicians today. Call 877-825-8584 or visit us online at pathlightbh.com.
And that is a real great, succinct overview of Pathlight Mood and Anxiety Center. And again, this is the Hope of the Day's housewarming party. And why we call it a housewarming party is because this organization, in one breath, again, is not brand new. They existed under a different name, Insight Behavioral Health, and have now sort of rebranded. And you're going to learn about the logic and reasons behind that. But why Hope of the Day wanted to help create this sort of kickoff party to drawing your attention to their platforms is, of course, we always want to help connect to excellence services. But it's also important that we think of ourselves as a whole community of individuals connected together in the work for mental health and wellness and overall trying to take the steps to get proper treatment and supports for mental health challenges. And so we took it as a real opportunity and honor to find some sort of way to lift up and celebrate and raise the visibility of this initiative by Pathlight Mood Anxiety Center. So even though this is on Hope for the Day's Facebook live stream, we also wanted to make sure we're co-sharing to Pathlight's Mood and Anxiety Center's new Facebook page as well. So if you're watching this on Hope of the Day's page, you can also see it co-streamed, and we would encourage you to like their page. And we're going to be producing and promoting their social media information where you can follow and look for them on Instagram and Twitter, LinkedIn, their YouTube channel, and a number of other places we'll be publishing in video details that you're going to see in a few minutes. So without further ado, what I wanted to do is we have two excellent guests. We have an individual who works in the direct services who's going to help talk to us about the strategy behind the new branded name and the organization as a whole. And then, of course, we have a wonderful, excellent individual sharing some lived experience and direct impact. So let's get rocking and rolling. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce both our guests, and then we're going to go from there. So first up, we have an individual named William White, who is Pathlight Mood and Anxiety Center's clinical director for the residential side, and they're going to elaborate a little bit further on their role, and of course, go into a little more depth on the services. So let's first make sure we can see William White and hear. Can we see you? Can we hear you? We're going to make sure we can get the video started and get them unmuted. Hi, William. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's really, I love Hope for the Day. I love your message. It's okay not to be okay. We talk about that all the time here. So just thank you so much. I'm really glad to be a part of this.
Well, it's our honor again. You know, we really dig what you all are doing. So this is a special opportunity for us to celebrate and support you all. And our next guest who you're going to hear from tonight is Eric Dorsett, who's a mental health advocate. Eric, let's make sure we can see and hear you.
Hi everyone. My name is Eric Dorsett. I am a national LGBTQ mental health and recovery advocate. I'm also a national eating disorder recovery advocate, and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much, Carl and Hope for the Day for hosting this event. And yes, we are absolutely all in the same community. So thank you.
Fantastic. And thank you so much, Eric, for joining us. So I thought we'd sort of get right into it a little bit here. William, we've sort of talked about, I just sort of briefly touched on, we had that great video to lead things in. And, you know, it could be confusing to individuals. Is this a brand new thing we're doing? Are we talking about some group that just popped up out of thin air yesterday? And obviously I've mentioned that this was a pre-existing organization and sort of rebranded. But one of my first questions to you is, could you sort of walk us through the strategy and logic? What does Pathlight Mood Anxiety Center, what does that indicate from what you previously were? Could you walk us through that?
Sure. Yeah. I think we chose the name Pathlight to kind of demonstrate our new philosophy. It's not necessarily even a new philosophy. It's just sort of, we feel like we've gone away from helping people gain insight into what they're doing as much as sort of shining light on and helping them identify what are the values that are important to me. What are the things, and how am I not living a life that is connected to those values, right? And so being able to provide some compassionate care and guidance to help people connect with those values, and then really live a life that is more in line with what they picture is important to them. Really kind of helping light the way to mental well-being, right? That's how we came up with Pathlight. So we have been around for quite a while as Insight. So this is, really all of our facilities are in place and still very active. We're just sort of changing the name and helping provide this different outlook for people.
And just to sort of put it right on the nose, because again, the video I thought was excellent. But could you elaborate a little bit on, someone's curious, they see the name, they have mental health questions. What can they sort of expect in terms of services there?
Yeah, well, we have a wide range of services, a bunch of different levels of care. Okay, so we go up all the way from a residential level of care, where people will come and stay with us for 20, 25, 30 days, 24/7. We kind of, if that level of care is needed, we have that in place. And so it's for people that are suffering from severe depression, OCD, PTSD, panic disorder, all kinds of mood and anxiety disorders, generalized anxiety disorder, bipolar, any kind of mental health issue that you are experiencing, we've worked with it. Okay? So that's our highest level of care is our residential programs, but we also have what's called a PHP, or a partial hospitalization program, all the way down to intensive outpatient, and even a little bit of outpatient services. So we tend to steer more towards the higher levels of care. But if you or somebody that you love is suffering from any kind of mood and anxiety disorder, as well as eating disorders, that is something that we really can look into helping you. I think go ahead.
Oh no, please finish your thought.
I was just going to say, this is a really hard time for a lot of people right now with everything that's going on with COVID-19. I'm just reading that the CDC is saying that 1 in 4 Americans are struggling with mental health issues directly related to COVID-19. And that's, outside of, what they say is 1 in 3 Americans throughout their lifetime will experience some sort of mental health issue. And so now all of a sudden 1 in 4 are struggling with it because of COVID-19. There's a huge need out there, and we're just trying to sort of help people identify how we can help.
And that's a really important statistic, because it's one thing to be inside of trying to engage on mental health on a daily basis by profession, by being within the communities and trying to bring people in to the conversation. But the silver lining, and it's a muddy silver lining, is that C19 has unfortunately compelled many of us, if not all of us, as a community and as populations, to have to engage in mental health conversation, regardless of if you have an experience that fits the criteria of a diagnosable illness or not. People are coming to realize that you didn't need to fit the criteria of a diagnosis to realize that your mental health is a critical part of your day-to-day life experience. And I think in our community, historically, in our society rather, we bifurcate that. We think that mental health only means people who are dealing with things that put them on the verge of crisis or dramatically impact their day-to-day functionalities. And that's absolutely true. But that also makes people excuse or think that if they have a mental health challenge that doesn't fit that visible end of the spectrum, that whatever they're going through must be something that's about their willpower or to their imagination, or something that's easy to dismiss. And stress and psychological injuries, the intensive emotional impacts of just the strain of living under anxiety or discomfort, or the impact of losing, job security, health security, these are all things that can be injurious to our well-being and our functionality. And I wonder, William, so Pathlight is, hopefully, we connect with individuals all over the country in a lot of different places beyond America, who can qualify and get involved in the Pathlight services?
Yeah, um, anybody can, right? Um, Feel free to give us a call. You can talk to a licensed clinician if you are feeling like you are needing some services. Okay. We also offer a bunch of just free services for people to sort of browse through. There's a Say It Brave is another community and that has different webinars that we're a big part of and really want to help people sort of access that as well, to be able to just sort of, not even getting services, just sort of dropping by and sort of seeing what other people are saying and hearing about this. There's free virtual support groups that are available. We got a couple different blogs that are all available on our website, which is pathlightbh.com. So those things are, even outside of receiving services, those are just sort of other ways to kind of see what it's like, see what people are talking about, and see what our services are surrounded around. But certainly, if you are feeling any kind of suicidal, depression, anxiety, these are really difficult things to deal with, and you don't have to do it alone, right? And I think people are always amazed that there's other individuals that are going through something similar to them. It's very, very isolating to feel like you're going through depression, and especially suicidal thoughts. Those are really isolating things to happen. So a big part of what we do is get people together and do some group treatment. And there's also a lot of individualized treatment, but helping people understand that you are not in this alone. You're not the first or the only person to experience this. Please reach out, check out the website, and see what other people are saying about these things. You're not alone with it.
That's great, and it's good to know that you have obviously remote adjustments beyond your residential.
Yeah.
Which, if somebody is there a geographic limitation to the residential experience? Should that be there? If somebody's in Texas or Boston, it's more of an application system and kind of thing like that?
Yeah, it's really sort of depends on what symptoms you're experiencing and how severe they are. We will work with you and figure out how to get you where you need to go. So yeah, we take people from all over the country, even internationally. So if they need our services, we're going to find a way to get them to you, or get you to us, I guess.
And that's fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And in talking about the types of services and talking about the reality around not just with C19, but the realities around mental health and the challenges, as complex as they are, we know from Hope for the Day's experience, and obviously we probably go without saying your experiences as well, that people can spend a lot of time living with a mental health challenge, and they don't need an expert necessarily to tell them that something's wrong. They know something was wrong, but the biggest challenge consistently seems to be not just the illness, but getting to support. And there's so many obstacles that aren't about, we can talk about funding and making sure there's enough hospital beds or a representation of clinician. But even before we can get to that, those very real realities that might be deficiencies or whatnot, getting people to start the conversation for themselves is oftentimes one of the biggest trials in a potential pathway of there's going to be challenges. And it's always important to recognize that for all the supports and services that are out there, if we can't get people to reach out for help, if we can't get people to a position where they can indicate that they are unwell or need help, it's not going to necessarily make an impact. And that silence that drives so many people to suffer in solitude is built on stigmas, and stigma, beyond the hashtag, we at Hope for the Day use the word stigma as a functional, like a mechanism, that stigma are the things that we don't say. And so what is stigma changes with each individual. It can be economically based, ethnically based, culturally based, geographically based, age based, but that silence keeps people from not maybe acknowledging signs and symptoms or not being able to communicate outward about it. So it's always important for people to hear and learn and listen from those who have taken the first step out, because there's a lot of bad information out there, and it can drive a lot of cynicism. People believing that oh, you're clinicians. Well, it's all bunk. It doesn't work. It's, even people who maybe have engaged professional services before, just because they didn't work doesn't necessarily mean you're hopeless. It just means that maybe those things weren't effective for you, but there are options and tools out there. So Eric, as a mental health advocate, we wanted you to come on because you can relay and talk about navigating and connecting with services and connecting and finding that truth. And that there is no magic wand. It's a journey. And maybe you could share with the audience a little bit about where you come into play and how you became so passionate as being an advocate.
Absolutely. I am really honored to be here. Again, my name is Eric Dorsett, and I am a national mental health recovery advocate. I partner with Pathlight Mood Recovery Center because I feel very passionate about giving back, because so much has been given to me. I'm someone who, I sit here in front of you today because an entire community of people shared with me light and love and connection freely, and before they even knew me, because they understood and continue to understand what it is like to be in the beginning and the ongoing process of this journey. And I am someone who desperately needed access to low cost and virtual services at the beginning of my recovery as well, being an LGBTQ person. And so my family is very Latino, Italian, conservative, South Texan. Christmas is very fun. I am a drag queen, and I didn't start my journey that way. I didn't start my journey that way at all. Growing up, I always felt that there was something different about me, and that different was dangerous. And as a child, I did not have the articulation that I needed to be able to talk about what was going on with me, that I felt different. I just remember growing up always feeling embarrassed and ashamed of who I was and how I moved through the world. And that is traumatic. I felt like being me was dangerous. And so I had to avoid being me at all costs and start faking it. And what I have learned in my mental health journey, absolutely 100% fundamentally, is that there weren't things that were wrong with me. My mental illness, my anxiety, my depression, my PTSD, substance use disorder and eating disorder, oh man, were symptoms of the real problem, if you call it that, that was learning how to love and accept myself, learning how to love and accept myself. And as William talked about, finding my values and my purpose and my ability to walk through my life authentically, and to feel safe, loved, and supported enough in my life to connect authentically with community. I define recovery as the ability to accept myself for exactly where I am at any moment in time, and to build community around that. My favorite saying that has been very instrumental in my recovery is from Dr. Seuss, which is, those that mind don't matter, and those that matter don't mind. And that is definitely what I want on my tombstone someday. But in the beginning of my journey, I just grew up with this compounding feeling that I was flawed, that I was damaged, that I was broken, that I was not capable, that I was not enough. And society really echoed that message. We see, particularly within the LGBTQ community, two stigmas. The first stigma is that who you are is something that you have to conceal until you feel safe enough to reveal, if that's even your option. And the second stigma is that the reason why statistically LGBTQIA individuals have higher rates of mental illness and mood and anxiety disorders and eating disorders is because there's morally something wrong with them. When the reality is that how we are treated and perceived and taught to believe and feel about ourselves greatly impacts our ability to connect, to be vulnerable, to find purpose and meaning in our lives, especially when you're faced with rejection. And so treatment for me, in the beginning, the way that it looked for me is I definitely felt like my life was not sustainable. I wanted to live and I didn't know how. I felt like when I was 18 and I finally came out of the closet and my family was not supportive at that point, that I had been keeping secret an eating disorder for many years. And the shame and the secrecy of that eating disorder was compounded with PTSD, depression, anxiety. And I felt like I was jumping from one sinking life raft to the next, just buying time with these behaviors. And what I know today is those behaviors were a cry for help. They were my attempt at trying to manage my life from a core of faulty belief systems, which is that fundamentally at my core, I believed that I was damaged and broken and that I should fear myself. And so trying to navigate life from that core belief system did not lead me down very successful paths. And at that time, I had no idea that that's what was actually going on. I just felt so lost in the symptoms of my own mental illness. And I felt like I was trying to navigate it all on my own. I had no community. And that compounded with, the culture that I came from. You talked about barriers that weren't just socioeconomic, that weren't just about access to care, insurance, which are very real barriers. And they were barriers for me. You talked about other barriers, my culture being Latino, Mexican from both sides, and poor. Psychology was not something that we talked about. We didn't talk about emotions. We talked about expectations, and these were the expectations that you had to meet to live a successful life, thus more layers of beliefs. And from those layers of beliefs, I had no idea that getting help was actually an option. It was really scary. God was going to fix it. What I tell people today is God made therapists and psychiatrists and communities and healers and articulate people and compassionate people to help. We're all a community. Each of us holds a beautiful piece of the mosaic that is recovery. It's not just a one size fits all approach. So today, what my journey looked like was asking for help. That's the only thing I knew how to do. My life was falling apart. And through that process, I began to really come to terms with what was going on, is that I really wanted to love and believe in myself, to accept my identity. And the treatment center that I went to, in addition to the outpatient clinicians and the community that I found in recovery, the sober community, other LGBTQ people who were so graciously and lovingly sharing their experiences of moving from shame around their identities to actual pride and love in their identities, helped me realize that there was a place for me in this world. And I began to let go and grieve the loss of those beliefs, because they were an identity for me. And so grief has been a huge part of my recovery. And they held this compassionate, curious space to help me let go of the shame around why an eating disorder, why depression, why my identity, why my family. And when I could stop looking for the whys as if I was broken and I needed to fix them, they helped me realize that learning to love and embrace those whats was crucial to my recovery. That I'm someone who believes that I'm never done in this journey. This is something that I get to pick up and embrace every day of my life, and it's the foundation of my life, and everything in my life is built on this foundation of learning to love and accept myself, which is how I would define my mental health and my mental wellness. And I'm not in eating disorder recovery and mood and anxiety recovery and PTSD recovery. I'm in a journey towards wellness and those things. I am one person learning to love and accept myself, and to get curious instead of shameful around those things. And the most powerful thing I ever heard in my journey is me too. Understanding that I'm in a world with so many people who have the same questions I do. And there's such a relief in being able to share those questions and discover maybe some of them have an answer and maybe some of them don't, but I'm no longer alone. And so if this is new for you, or if this is something that you're struggling with, or if this is something that you are finding a hard time even talking about, I would say the awareness that something is wrong is such a beautiful gift, and hang on to that with curiosity and not shame. And there's so many resources out there. Like William was saying, we have Stay It Brave through Eating Recovery Center, which is a free webinar-based resource, often led by a clinician and a lived experience to offer insight into different recovery topics. We have peer support groups through Pathlight Behavioral Health and Eating Recovery Center. We do free clinical assessments. We take most major insurances, you know, but there's so much more, including what you offer at Hope for the Day. You know, it's okay to not be okay, especially now more than ever. I am definitely not okay every day. And start building a community, however you can, with people that you know are safe to do so, because that community is what has really, community has been the biggest gift and the biggest tool of my recovery and my journey in mental health, and towards mental wellness, because not everything I have, you know, has a recovery. There's some things that I've learned through treatment and other people's lived experiences that are ongoing, and that is okay. And it doesn't make me different, and it doesn't make me broken. It's what I bring to the table. And the ability to share that experience because people shared it with me gives purpose and meaning to my life. And so I'm a huge believer that you have to give it away to keep it. So that's why I'm here, and I'm really glad to be here. So thank you.
Man, Eric, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us and sharing your truth and your journey. It's so critical for people to hear from lived experience and know that this isn't, you know, it's not hopeless out there. It can be scary making those first steps, as you have perfectly distilled for us. But and it's also important, I want folks to pay attention to that. To speak credibly about mental health, we have to move beyond simplicity out of respect to the experience. And so the idea of getting help and support is not about a promise of it will forever be a bed of roses afterwards. If you listen carefully to what Eric has been telling you just now, the goal is to find tools and resources to take control. And what that means is that even if there are going to be challenges that come, obstacles, you've built resiliency. Resiliency is the tools to be able to endure, bounce back, move through things. And when we talk about success in mental health, that's what we're hoping for, is that, you know, there are some things that can be healed and you sort of move past and they don't revisit you, okay? But for some of us, some of the things that we live with, you know, it's not just a matter of there's going to be an end point to it. You know, if you're diagnosed with something like bipolar disorder, there's not a day where you will suddenly have a magic wand brush over you and there's a cure and you will no longer be bipolar, because what's happening is an organic reality within your body. And it's about taking control of that and not letting it sort of steer and disrupt your life. And Eric, your truths, you know, even for all the aspects in which there are things that through your understanding, certain elements couldn't necessarily impact you the way they did before. There's going to be parts of your experience that will still stay with you, that you have to work on and continue to develop it and work through it. That relationship, that honest and open communication is what gives you the strength to do it, right? You know?
Absolutely.
So that's just so important. You continue to share your story. It can never not be told enough, because there's too many folks who live in a silence. You know, if we recall what William was talking about, where we talk about 1 in 3 historically may report a mental health challenge in their lifetime. And you cited CDC's, William, you cited CDC's 1 in 4 currently dealing with a COVID struggle. This is just a fact. You know, that's 300 million people in this country. If you try to map that out, that's not me. There's going to be a lot of folks who maybe are going to try to navigate these things, or are navigating these things feeling stupid or embarrassed or ashamed, or maybe thinking that despite, no matter how much they try and avoid a situation, binge watch TV, drink, smoke, do any sort of other activity to not focus on what's going on, they have a pressure or this sort of agitation inside of their soul and inside of their mind about what's going on that they just can't get rid of. That it just continues to crowd their thoughts and invade their feelings and emotions, and it makes it hard to interact and connect with people. Folks, if that even vaguely touches on something you went through, that's a mental health challenge. And it doesn't have to fit, like I said, it doesn't fit the criteria of what might be a diagnosable illness, but look, anxiety is real. Stressors are real, and they can become toxic, and they can become crushing to your quality of life. And if there's one thing you can take home today, it's knowing that you are not alone, and that there are resources out there, such as Pathlight Mood Anxiety Center. You got to meet William, who is part of a very large team of people who care and want to help you find your better. And if you didn't believe me or you don't mind William, you've got Eric here, who through his own courageous resilience is able to share his story. And each and every one of you has your own story. But this doesn't have to be a story that ends in a sadness. It can be one that ends with an upbeat and an uptick, because it doesn't end. It continues to move forward on wherever your journey may go. So I want to thank William so much for being here on behalf of Pathlight Mood Anxiety Center. And Eric, I want to again thank you so much. And before we sign off, people in our threads have been talking, and we're seeing a lot of interaction. We've been posting all the information on where you can find Pathlight Mood Anxiety's spanking new Facebook page, their brand shiny new Instagram, their Twitter. They obviously have a homepage, a website homepage. We've been publishing all that. If you're watching right now, before you stop, please automatically go and click on Pathlight Mood Anxiety Center, give them a like, so that you just keep it in the Rolodex. They're always producing information and insights. So even if you don't feel like you need services and treatment at the moment, maybe you pass it on to a friend, but keeping them in your feed will help you just stay in your mind and help support their work. But before we sign off, because we're hitting about that time, I wanted to sort of give you two sort of just some closing thoughts before we sign off. So William, if you what would be your sort of go home message for folks tonight?
Yeah, I can't understand how hard it is to take that first step and be vulnerable and really talk about what's going on for you. And one of the things that I love about Pathlight is that we have think of ourselves as compassionate mentors who will meet you where you're at. And so if you're not ready for the services, but just sort of want to ask questions or think about it, we can meet you there. And if you are willing to or wanting to sort of receive the help and be able to share what's going on for you, we have trained clinicians that will talk to you on the phone and sort of help figure out what is right for you. So I know it's really hard to take that first step, and I really encourage everybody to do that, because it's not a sign of weakness. It is really a sign of bravery and strength to be able to kind of access that pain and hurt that you're feeling and share it with somebody.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Eric.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again, and to kind of echo, it takes a lot of courage to even show up to watch something like this, and I do know what it's like to be at day zero, many day zeros, and I want to say, like, you are not alone, and recovery is not, and a journey towards mental wellness is not about fixing. Again, it's about recognizing that you're never broken. You're not broken, you're not damaged, you're not flawed, and you're definitely not alone. And there's definitely a world of people who are ready to accept you exactly where you are, whether that's in treatment or other communities of people. Like, find your tribe. That's one of the beauties of social media, is there's so many tribes out there to connect with. And I'm just happy to be on this journey with so many people. So thank you.
Well said. And with that, I think this is a perfect place to sort of put a pin in it for the evening. On behalf of Hope of the Day, we hope to connect again with Pathlight, and I think it's going to be relevant to do things like maybe an open town forum, Q&A, take questions. That'll be a lot of fun, I think, in the future. But for right now, for those who are watching currently and those who might engage this video in the days and weeks after, please make sure you heed Eric and William's words and understand that it's okay not to be okay. That even though you may have spent days, weeks, months, years living with a mental health challenge in silence, that doesn't mean you have to continue going down that path. There are supports and services out there, and these things start with a conversation, a scary conversation we can understand, but they start with that first step, and you're not stepping out into the ether out alone. You're going to find that you're stepping through a doorway to folks who care and people who want to support your having a better outcome in life. So I want to again thank William White, Eric Dorsett, each speaking on behalf of Pathlight Mood Anxiety Center. I want to thank the Pathlight Mood Anxiety Center for giving us the opportunity to be able to showcase and throw a housewarming party for you. And thank you all for watching tonight or engaging in days after. And again, my name is Carl Evans on behalf of Hope for the Day, and we hope you have a wonderful evening. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.